What would you do if you get lonely? Nobody's waiting on your side. You've been around far much too long. You know it's just your foolish pride, Lila. You got me on my knees, Lila. I'm begging, darling, please, Lila. Darling, won't you ease my worried mind? Layla, you got me on my knees, Layla. I'm begging, darling, please, Layla. Darling, won't you ease my worried mind? Layla, you got me on my knees, Layla. I'm begging, darling, please, Layla. Darling, won't you ease my worried mind? Done. I'm live on LinkedIn. I'm live on YouTube. I've sent the message to 2,000 plus people on WhatsApp. Yeah, I'm sorted. Now we will begin. Just waiting for a few people to join in. Bum. Good morning, Mr. Jingle. Good morning. If you can hear me, we can begin. What do you say? You know what? I was late yesterday, so people expect me to be late today. And they were right. I'm not very happy with this, but yeah. Tomorrow we'll be on 8 a.m. sharp at 8 a.m. You know, we'll be... So we can begin, right? We can start? The voice is okay. Let me check LinkedIn. Darling, won't you ease my worried mind? Yeah, LinkedIn is fine. The audio. So, yes, perfect. Let's begin. Let us begin. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, gotta follow tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together. It'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like hot water with some black pepper in it. And here we go. Oh my God. Sublime. Beautiful. Let's do it again. Absolutely wonderful. Keeps getting better. Good job on the simultaneous sip, guys. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you're not alone. It says that we're in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. So, Aurobindo is closing in on a $5.5 billion buyout of Zentiva. Now, this is perhaps the biggest buyout by an Indian company of, like an international company. It's a European company, Zentiva. It's bigger than Biocon's 3.2 billion dollar acquisition. Biocon did in 2014. Biocon did a 3.3 billion dollar acquisition of US based Vitra, Vitra's biosimilars business. Now and then Sun Pharma did like a 3.2 billion dollar acquisition of Daiichi Sankyo. But this is way bigger than all of them. This is $5.5 billion Zentiva buyout. Prague-based generic maker Zentiva. So they bought it from Advent International, a PE firm. So this is huge. Now let's look at the valuation of this company. They've been valued at $5.5 billion when they made a $400 million of EBITDA of euros. So you're looking at something like a $500 million EBITDA and revenue is of $1.7 billion euros. That's almost $2 billion, and they are getting acquired at $5.5 billion. That's less than a 3 multiple. But that's what you get in generics, right? Because generics is a high volume and low net profit game. So that's that. It's a pretty big deal. 30 countries, Zentiva, 4 manufacturing units in Europe, 1 in Gujarat. Aurobindo is number 1 in Indian companies in Europe. So it's a big deal. A lot of buyouts happening as far as the pharma sector are considered. We've been talking a lot about them. Speaking of what we've been talking a lot about, the rare earth. We've talked about the rare earth. Mr. Ankit Jindal asks, when we consider a different currency valuation, do we consider PPP? No, not really. I mean, I get why you're saying that if you're acquiring a company in Europe, would it? No. But the net multiples are always directed towards the net in that currency. So you're basically talking, let's say if they're making a net of 100 million, right? That's earnings. And it's dollars. So it doesn't matter what the country's PPP is. It's just, price to earnings, price to sales, and so on and so forth. So what we've been talking a lot about rare earth. Finally, India and China have come to a deal. China has lifted the rare earth, exports blockage. So China is giving their rare earth minerals to India finally. And also giving the supplies of agricultural products. That was the fertilizer. Now, India imports 80% of its fertilizers from China. So when China blocked it, I guess it blocked it in April. And this is a very important time, right? This is monsoon. So right after this season, there's going to be the Rabi crop season, right? Now, if India wouldn't have gotten those fertilizers from China, India was already looking at filling that gap by going to Russia, by going to Saudi Arabia, by going to Morocco. These were the 3 countries. So India was going to West Asia and Russia and everywhere to make up for the fertilizer shortfall, right? Because of China blockage. But China is giving it away now. China is also giving the rare earth mineral. 100% of rare earth magnets came from China, due to which Bajaj, Ather, everybody, the two-wheelers especially, were looking at blocking or let's say halting their production. So that was a big deal. And the four-wheelers were cool because they had a lot of ample supplies, they had a lot of reserves, but two-wheelers not so much. It seems like that problem is in the past now because they're going to get the rare earth mineral supply. This is probably why or not why, but Aether. Did you look at the stock? 6% up yesterday. So if you would have taken Aether stock when we discussed it, it would have been like up 32%, 35%, something of that sort. And uh, we talked about it like in 2 weeks ago. So that's what Aether is doing. So good job on the rare earth minerals. This might seem like a win to India that, oh, we got the fertilizers, we got the rare earth minerals, we got this and that. But we're just back to the norm, back to square A, right? This was the default earlier. So China had caused a problem. So now we are coming back to normal. It's not like something extraordinary is happening, but it is extraordinary because these two things were very critical for the Indian economy. So looks like Mr. Modi's visit to China is going to be on a happy term because they're talking about line of actual control, sorting those things out. We've already given them the tourist approvals. We've already given them uh, the investments without scrutiny up to 24% and so on and so forth. So a lot of good things are happening as far as India China ties are considered, which is a direct finger to US, right? If India and China and Russia become a bloc, US is screwed. So US has really shot itself in the foot by you know by going against India. Now, while India got the tariffs, and because of those tariffs, India faced a lot of problems. While that happened, right, and India stopped buying Russian crude to that level, Indian refiners started looking at it very carefully. China started picking those up. So essentially, US didn't get anything, right? US wanted to arm twist Russia by blocking India and saying that blocking India, Russia is gonna lose a customer, but China just picked up the tab. So absolutely nothing for Russian loss. It just made India an adversary. Also, Mr. Tiwari says now India may not go heavy on these things like self-reliance, which you are unfortunately right. I hope that doesn't happen because India's the mineral trust has been established with 3,500 crore rupees. So that trust is actually looking at investments in that direction, overseas mining and so on and so forth. I hope those efforts don't stop just because you're now getting something from China, right? Which is what happens usually. Uh, you face a setback, you start working towards it, fixing it for long term, and then that setback goes away, and then you're back to square A, being pathetic losers that you are, right? So that I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope India keeps on with its efforts because China is not an ally, man. Unfortunately, right? In the long term, in the midterm, it's not an ally. It's a very complicated player. Speaking of being right and being having the foresight, capex push in works for next gen PSUs. Okay, Center plans to promote next generational PSUs in critical minerals, renewables, aerospace, electronics, and defense sectors. So, if you remember, now it should be sealed, right? Now it should be sealed that these people, these analysts, had talked about defense not being a good bet in the mid-term and long-term and short-term because defense peaked a little and then it fell. So these people said that hey, it's gotten screwed and it's not gonna pick up for a long time, for 12 to 16 months. That's what these people had said, the analysts, and I had said it's the analysts against me in this case. So Mascot Dock, Garden Reach Shipbuilders, and Cochin Shipyard are amongst the PSUs which are gonna look at investments from center. Also, the government has given a clear go ahead of some 62,000 crores worth of light combat aircrafts (LCAs) from HAL. So HAL, Mascot Dog, Garden Reach Shipbuilders, all are defense companies, and capex push is going towards those defense companies. What happens to the defense stocks now, right? So, by the way, this flight LCA deal which is happening, India desperately needs more fighter jets. India desperately needs, because India's squadron strength is at an all-time low. India's strength right now, Indian Air Force squadron strength is at where it was in 1965, right? Because MiG 21s got retired, and now we just don't have planes, right? So we really need planes, and this is why, uh, in addition to, it's gonna have 180 plus planes coming to India with the recent, order clearance. It's gonna formally ink a deal in a couple of days with HAL. So HAL is gonna be looking good, and so are all these players, which is great news. By the way, uh, we had talked about something which was slightly ahead of the curve when it came to fighter jets. So we had said, and viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember, that India has a less squadron strength right now. India is running short of airplanes in the Air Force, but the future is in drones, right? The future is in drones. And in fact, the future is not in drones. Right now, the present is in drones. Right? People are saying that the current war between Russia and Ukraine is an all robot war, essentially. On the front lines, there's an all robot war going on. So it's all drones, right? So what we had talked about was the possibility that India might just have another smartphone moment in drone technology. Why I use that analogy, I know analogies are not the good way to think. What was because India's smartphone story faced a very interesting paradigm. India didn't really have a lot of computers penetration, even in the mid 2000s, right? The computer penetration of this country was not that ubiquitous. It was pretty solid in the industrial sector, in the corporate sector, in the working class, upper middle class people. It had gone right pretty deep. However, the larger population was not that computer friendly. But then what happened in 2004 2006 is that smartphones started picking up, and in 2015 Geo came along, right? And then with Geo and all the smartphones getting ubiquitous, Indian population, which didn't get introduced to computers, got introduced to smartphones first. And what I had said was that this could be an opportunity for our country to actually leapfrog in a frontier technology like drones, because who's gonna use fighter crafts anyway in times to come? So a lot of those investments could be routed to drones, and let's see if the government has that foresight, because wars are all about drones now. Fighter planes are more or less obsolete. So there's no point in investing a lot in fighter planes any longer. That's what we believe. That's what I believe. And let's see what happens. Speaking of something extraordinary, uh, there has been a blanket ban on online money games. Online money games. The cabinet approved legislation that will impose a blanket ban on the online gaming industry, which is online betting industry essentially. So they've just like banned money games altogether, and that's like huge, man. That's huge. That's like a 20,000 crore GST hit. This betting industry makes like 27,000 crore rupees, right? Revenues. So they say that a lot of suicides are happening, a lot of people are going into debt because of these games. So screw you guys. Mr. Karan Sahu says, "Bro, you are fire." Wow. Well, thank you, Mr. Sahu. uh, Mr. Tiwari asks, even things like Dream 11 Rummy. Yes, 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 Mr. Tiwari. Even Dream 11 and Rummy. So that's the play. Industry estimated at 78,000 crore by 2019, 30,000 crore in 2024. You know, real money gaming, essentially 85% of the entire revenue uh, of the gaming, basically 31,000. So when people say gaming, betting is not gaming. But what these people started doing was they incorporated betting in gaming, and then the online gaming industry started looking good in India, right? Which was a sham. So betting is not gaming. Gaming is like Rockstar games, right? Like Max Payne, GTA, and so on and so forth. Animation, intelligence, video gaming. That's gaming. That is a very small industry in India, basically 4,000 crores. But 28,000 crores is the betting play, and they put a blanket ban on it. So, what are these companies gonna do? They're going to the court. They're saying that you're gonna lose out on 20,000 crore rupees on GST, and it's gonna be a bit of a problem. And all these players are gonna go to the offshore entities like Mahadev, Radhe, and so on and so forth, like these illegal gaming websites, right? That's where the money is gonna go, and the government is like, we don't care, you're banned. So we were expecting something like a 40% GST on these guys. Earlier it was 28%. So we thought that they'd get like a cess and so on and so forth, like a 60% of GST, or let's say tax, net tax. But they just banned it altogether. now now this is obviously a great news, because people were committing suicides. We've talked about this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember, people were going into debt, they were committing suicides because of these gaming apps, right? Or betting apps. Let's not call them gaming apps, right? Let's call them betting apps. Well, if they were able to lobby or put 75% tax on it, right? So that's what these people are going to try. They're going to say that you're going to go with online gaming, right? Sorry, illegal gaming. That's where the money is going to go, and you won't be able to tax it. So that's their case, but the government has put their foot down, and that's it. It's a shocker for companies like Nazara, Games 24/7, Dream 11, MPL, Gamescraft, Winzo, Zupi, and all of these players who used to, have these betting operations on. They're done, especially with this legislation. Now it's gonna be a protracted legal fight, so let's see what happens. But yeah, for now, they're pretty much done. Now you would remember I was running a platform called Virtual Voter, where it was a polling platform. We did polls, right? Social polling. We what the problem we solved. Uh, I'll have to stop because Mr. Patil made a very intelligent comment. So much money spent on ads. Now all that will go down the drain. Now that's a second order effect. That's very well said. With the gaming industry going down, a lot of money on Facebook ads, Google ads, it's gonna go down. A lot of money on influencer marketing will go down, because these people were the front runners of influencer marketing, right? And if they go down, the whole influencer marketing thing starts looking bleak. Uh, Now coming back, now I had built a platform called Virtual Voter, which was a platform for polling. We had said that the polling right now is a black box. You don't know how that polling happens. So we made a transparent platform which engaged people with social polls, and we predicted the Lok Sabha elections accurately. When every large scale pollster said that it's going to be a landslide for BJP, 400 plus, we said it could be a hung assembly, and that's what it was. It was essentially a coalition which had to be formed, right? So we did that, but there was no money. There was very hard. It was very hard to make money on the polling play. So we wanted to build something like a poly market. We thought we'd make a poly market kind of a play where people can actually wager bets on predictions of social events, right? And the Indian player which existed in that domain was something like a Probo. And when we started digging up on Probo just ran an illegal betting operation, right? With the facade of a prediction market. So what they did was, Probo, what they did was they borrowed all the, uh, odds from offshore entities where all this matka trading is happening, and they just displayed those odds on their app, and they took bets from you, and the opposite side of the bets was Probo 123, user Probo 123. So essentially they were an illegal betting matka, positioning themselves as a, a prediction market. So I wrote on that, and it was just extraordinary that they were being able to do that. They did a revenue of 500 crores, by the way, with a net profit of, let's say, 100 crores. So they, all these betting companies, they made money. So if you look at the Indian startup ecosystem, the only players who actually made money were these guys. So entire Indian startup ecosystem, the only players who made predictable money with good margins, net. I'm talking about PAT. I'm not talking about EBITDA. I'm not talking about adjusted EBITDA, whatever the shit that means, right? I'm talking about net. It's these guys, the betting guys, the illegal matka people, right? But they are now. Why is borrowing odds illegal? Asks Mr. Tiwari. Now, borrowing odds is as illegal as anything, but I'm not talking about the legality. I'm talking about positioning yourself as a prediction market. So, what is supposed to happen in a prediction market, in a community betting market? What is supposed to happen is that right now, Mr. Jindal, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Patil, Mr. Tarun are here, and Mr. Mittal is here, let's say, and we all place bets, right? And our betting is supposed to determine the odds. So let's say if I place a bet, it's supposed to change the odds, right? That's what community betting is. That's what a prediction market is. But what is a matka? Matka is that the market has an odd, let's say 4 is to 10, right? That is being displayed on the screen, right? And that market essentially is not what's happening with Mr. Jindal, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Tarun, Mr. Patil. That's not what's happening. That's a universe that's outside the app. So they are taking those odds, displaying them. Even if all of us put that odd, place a bet on one side, the odds of your app won't shift. Okay, the odds of your app shift when the entire matka shifts. The offshore Betfair shifts. Betfair is the London based aggregator of all odds, right? So that shifts, and that shifts your odd. And that is not, that's basically you're disguising yourself as a community player. Okay, that you're disguising yourself as a community prediction market, but what you actually are just a fraud. You're a facade. You've borrowed the odds from the market, and you're playing a casino game where everybody is betting against the house, right? So that I hope you got the point. Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Tarun writes, you're playing probability when every odds are opposite of you. Okay, rig up the game. It's not even about rigging up the game, right? So it's just about having a facade of a community bet when it's actually just a wrapper on the matka odds of the universe markets. You get the point. This is very, very important. So if you're a prediction market, like if you're poly market, the odds that you place will actually change the odds of your market, right? That's predictive market, right? Let's say if I'm saying that the Trump will fall off the stairs tomorrow, okay, and so I put a bet on it, and then somebody else puts a bet on it, it's gonna change. That's predictive market. That's poly market. What these guys do is that they don't have a bet like that. You can't start your own bets there. They have like cricket mein kaun jeetega, and that bet is already running on the entire internet, and they're borrowing those market odds and they're putting them up. So it's just fake. It's fraud. It's illegal. It's totally illegal, by the way. You can't do that, right? So it's false advertising about the product. So now probably they'll also be having to look at the legal recourse. But long discussion, let's move on. US delivers a big blow to cross-border payments. Sub $800 parcels are now going to get no tax-free imports. It's going to be a bit of a trouble. Cross-border payment firms are bracing for a 15 to 25% fall in e-commerce shipment from India to US because of this zero import thing of sub $800 parcels to US. So India and US are really, something is happening. Trump ends tax-free import of sub $800 parcels. Moving on. SBI has come out with a report which says there's going to be a loss of 45,000 crores for the Indian exchequer because of the GST play, because of the GST rationalization 5%, right? But the government says it's no problem because it's gonna spur demand, and when it spurs demand, the cascading effects of that are gonna make up for what we lose in the short term. By the way, the 5% GST thing, you remember, small vehicles got that 5% thing, right? And then a lot of good things happened. Now, mobile phone guys are also asking for a 5% GST. So they say that about 99% of mobile phones that India sells in the home market are made in India, right? And if you're supporting Indian industries, because the PLI went out, right? So PLI went out. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency, do you remember? We talked about PLI for mobile manufacturing going out, right? And then mobile manufacturers were like, "Ooh, we're gonna die," and so on and so forth. But the government said, "We've given you enough PLIs. It's been running since 2017. You're a mature industry now. You're gonna rest easy. Don't worry." Right? So government pulled out the PLI in mobile manufacturing. But now, since the GST has been rationalized, these mobile manufacturers are saying that you know, give us the 5% GST, because that's gonna spur demand. Because it's not just cars that are not selling; it's mobile phones as well, right? So let's see what happens there. Obviously, telcos were all now every company or every industry wants to be a part of the 5% GST slab, right? Obviously, that's not gonna work out. But what do you think will happen? Will Indian India government listen to the mobile companies' 5% GST decline? Oh, sorry, GST block. Do you think they're gonna yield to these guys? What do you think? What do you think is gonna happen? Will maybe on cheaper phones? So you're saying, Mr. Tarun is saying that phones, let's say less than 50,000 will get a GST, slab of 5%, or maybe 25,000. What's definition of cheap, right? I agree, uh, says Mr. Jindal. So 30,000 bucks, says Mr. Tarun. But economy phones are said to be, they're called like sub 12,000. Yeah, 15,000. That's the range for economy phone. Uh, Mr. Patil and Mr. Tiwari don't agree. They say, I don't think they're gonna go with uh, rationalization of GST for phones. I personally believe there's a very, as people are anyways buying and will continue to buy, says Mr. Patil. No, Mr. Patil, that's where the problem is. Smartphones have been static since 3 years. They're not growing. 150 million, 151, 150, 151. That's the smartphone market. It's not been able to grow at all. And smartphone industry market also got the recent tariff thing. The trouble from US. I mean, electronics is not a part of the tariff play right now, but it's still trouble, right? So people are not buying smartphones. People have been deferring that purchase for a very long time. Now, I don't know what happens in the this particular play, but they are not buying. So I am inclined to the fact that since they took out the PLI, the government, and they took it out, and smartphone manufacturers do need some incentives to stay on, they might just take it out. So let's calculate the revenue loss that the government will have if they essentially took out the GST. Right now it's at 18%, which these people are calling regressive. So let's say the average selling price of a phone is at 10,000 for ease of calculation. Okay, 10,000 rupee phone, 15 crore phones sold each year. Okay, 15 crore times 10,000. Okay, now that's the value of phones getting sold, but the GST is 18%. So that's 1.8 thousand. Let's say it's 1.5 thousand for ease of calculation, or 2,000, right? 2,000. So 2,000 rupee per phone and 15 crore phones. So 15 crore times 2,000, 30 crore, 30 crore, 300 crore, 3,000 crore, 30,000 crores. 30,000 crore is the current GST collection. Okay, 30,000 crore. Let me know if I'm going wrong anywhere. 30,000 crore is the current GST collection, presumably, in the ballpark. If it goes to 5%, it's gonna go 5,000 rupees, against 2,000. So it's going to go one fourth of 30,000. One fourth of 30,000 is going to be 7,000 rupees. So essentially, the government is going to lose out on something like a 20,000 crore rupees, as far as the GST collected on smartphones is considered. In 20,000 crore rupees of GST loss, would government be happy with what happens with the smartphone, uh, you know, uh, accelerated sales is considered, or the net profits are considered? Maybe, maybe. So I am inclined to believe that it's a very difficult prediction, by the way. Very difficult, very hard to make prediction, but it's possible. If probabilities are aligned, I'd go with the 70-30%. Not sure, very complicated, but possible. Possible. So, one way we went wrong, by the way, one of our predictions went wrong. And you know that what that is. So we were thinking about, you remember, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember that cotton, the garment producers were lobbying with the government to cut it out of the cotton export duty, sorry, import duty. So India imports cotton, but it has a duty of 11%, right? To protect the cotton farmers of India. So India has like an 11% duty to safeguard its own farmers. So what these garment guys were saying was that cut this duty off, we'll get cotton from outside, it's cheaper, right? It's better, and we'll start making products in India, and then we'll be able to compete with Bangladesh and everybody else as far as US exports are considered. So to handle the tariff situation, cut the duty on the cotton import, and we'll be more competitive in the export market. That's what these people said, which essentially meant that they were throwing the cotton producers, the farmers, under the bus. And I said that it looks unlikely that the government will yield to that request, to that lobby. The government guy is throwing the cotton farmers under the bus. It looks like I was wrong. The government actually, did that. They took out the levies on cotton imports, and now India is going to import cotton. Garment manufacturers are going to have a better time as far as this thing is considered. Export markets are considered. So the government essentially, as a signal to US that hey, uh, they threw the cotton farmers under the bus. Now, why I'm saying cotton farmers under the bus and so on and so forth, is because I don't know the realities of cotton farming in India. I'm assuming that India has, what I read as a kid was India produces a lot of cotton, especially in the Deccan area with the alluvial soil and so on and so forth. So maybe it hurts the farmers, but maybe there is something that I don't know about. So Mr. Tarun says, it will backfire as Mr. Modi already said when US talked about opening agri. Exactly, that was my thought. That's what I thought. That India is very, very hell bent on saving its agri, but they've opened their cotton imports, man. Strange. Mr. Patil says electoral bonds yielding results. Well, I don't understand that, Mr. Patil. So please clarify. Moving on. Wedding bells to ring louder at hotels. Bookings at key properties in hotspots such as Corbett, Goa, Rajasthan higher than last year. Well, good, man. Anybody who's getting married in this market, is a hero. Anyway, moving on. I hope I'm not missing out on anything. Yeah, import duty on raw cotton waived till September end to ease local supply. So, industry says the duty waiver ensure raw material availability. Of course. Yeah, so move on. Let's move on. What did you mean by that? Big steps for LAC stability. That's on. That's cool. Okay. Yeah. So retail fuel margins propel oil PSO's Q net up 2.5 fold. they were making a lot of money, because of. But now the crude is falling down and the refining margins are going down, right? Because they are very on taking the Russian oils, so they're not really taking it up, and the crude is going down. So the oil marketing companies are facing a bit of a problem now. But the Q net margin was like twofold. So if you talk about the numbers, Indian Oil and BPCL, HPCL is Hindustan Petroleum Corporation, BPCL is Bharat, and IOCL Indian Oil. They combined profit of 16,000 crores, increase of more than 2.5 times year on year, extraordinary retail margins on petrol and diesel, despite heavy inventory losses. So petrol earned 10.3 per liter from a 4.4 earlier because of the crude going down. So with the crude going down, the inventory is looking at some losses because they bought crude and now the prices have got down. So now the inventory is piling up losses, but their margins were very tight. So very complicated times till the war is on. So let's see what happens. Speaking of, let's see what happens. Ultratech, the Birla cement guys, crossed 200 metric ton capacity in FY26. So India is the second largest cement manufacturer in the world. We are at currently 600 million tons of capacity. Ultratech 200 MT by 2026. They say we do not merely produce cement. Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla said, we enable highways that connect cities, the homes that nurture families, the bridges that accelerate commerce, and infrastructure that powers growth. So a very nation building kind of a spiel, very nice. So Indian cement market is not going anywhere because the government capex is up, right? So that's that. Moving on. Terms of NL buyout under review. Okay. Inox Wind sells 175 crore stake in its EPC, that's Engineering Procurement and Construction Unit, at a 7.4 thousand crore valuation. So they were basically looking at raising money. So they've raised money by selling a bit of their EPC subsidiary. Moving on. AI is driving a shift to newer, not fewer jobs, says LinkedIn's Fionn Ang, APAC MD. Now, how do you spot a horrible person? You spot them when they lie, right? When they lie through their teeth, and that's what's happening here. AI is driving a shift to newer, not fewer jobs, says LinkedIn's APAC MD. Now, this is obviously a lie. This is a plain white lie, and the person should be ashamed of themselves. But that's the pitch. The reason why she said was that the jobs that are being looked at right now, look at the reasoning. Okay, let's not condemn anybody on face value. Let's look at their rationale. So what's the rationale? Rationale is that the jobs that are being searched on LinkedIn right now, they are very different from what was being searched on in 2000. So that's her pitch, man. Can you imagine how, like, explicitly, bad this is? Like, the jobs which are being searched right now are different from the jobs that were searched in 2000. That's why AI is driving a shift to newer, not fewer jobs. Unbelievable, right? Ma'am, you should be ashamed of yourself. So that's that. Mid-market firm Coforge is seeing a silver lining. Mr. Tarun says digital marketing wasn't even a role then. Yeah, that's a rationale. Newer, not fewer. She must have thought like, whoa, I came out with a clever line. Newer, not fewer. Maybe that line is gonna get picked up by FT and everybody in the media is gonna pick up my line. I'm gonna be famous because I came out with a new slogan, right? Newer, not fewer jobs. Shameful. Anyway, SoftBank's son is backing Intel's stand with $2 billion. So we've talked about this. US wants to save Intel. US wants 10% in Intel. Trump essentially First, he went bazooka on Lib Bhutan. Lib Bhutan is the CEO of Intel, a pretty, senior guy. So he said he's conflicted and he should be fired. And then he talked to him and like, sir, I'm not conflicted and so on. And then Trump said, wow, he has a very inspiring story and so on and so forth. And now, then US said that they're gonna have like a 10% investment interest in Intel because they want to save Intel. Of course, Intel is US crown jewel. So now they're gonna get a $2 billion investment from Masa. Masa is SoftBank's chief. $2 billion in Intel. It's gonna be so Masa, when he invests in Intel, he's already invested in ARM, and he's invested in a lot of companies. He's also going to be a very big customer for Intel, so it's gonna be a good transaction, uh, which is very necessary because you got to save Intel. So Intel is right now in a very critical juncture of its story. The whole Panther Lake production play. We've talked a lot about this, the A18 thing. They really need to go forward with it, increase its yield, make sure that it sells well. And for that, they need some stability. Right now, they have stability, and now they're going to get some cash. So it's a good bet. By the way, Lib Bhutan, Mr. Lib Bhutan was a part of the SoftBank board until 2022. So it's a very close combination, close relationship, by the way. Speaking of relationships, I had interviewed Alok Sama sir. Alok Sama sir was the CFO of SoftBank. President and CFO. He worked directly with Masa San as his deputy. He reported to Masa San directly. That's a huge interview that I did. Yeah. On his book, he wrote a book called Money Trap. Moving on. Fresher hiring intent slips to 70% in H2. Well, we know that. Coforge, the mid-market IT firm, is looking at some deals. As predicted, what we said was when IT declines, when IT faces problems, the big guys are going to be affected the most. But the mid-market guys and the small guys, they're going to gain a little, right? As the big guys fall apart. So that's exactly what happened. Coforge is like the 8th largest player in India. It's a mid-market play, $1.65 billion in revenue. So its deal sizes are rising up, and while the stalwart, the bellwether firms are facing problems. Moving on, Mr. Tarun says good interview with a paperback copy, which is fake. Yeah, you're right. Moving on, big banner films still fail to deliver bang for the buck. So, War and all these Coolie and these shitty films, they were made at a budget of 350 to 450 crore each. These films had a budget of like 350 to 450 crores, and they've made just like right now, in the first 4 days, 165 crores and 195 crore each. So, for people who don't understand, don't know, if a film is made at a budget of 450 crores, it needs to make at least 900 crores to break even, because 50% of the box office goes to the cinema guys, the theater guys, PVR guys, right? So if a movie is doing a business of 200 crores, that means the production guys are only going to get 100 crores, which essentially means that if they had a budget of 450 crores, they're going to be losing out on 200 crores net over the course. So right now, if in the first 4 days they've done like 200 crores, what's going to be the total net for them? Maybe 400 crores in 2 weeks, right? If they are able to do a business of 400 crores and they were made at a budget of 450 crores, they're going to be losing 250 crores, right? Big budget movies do not make sense. People should understand that, right? They're not good for users. They're not good for us, because if a big budget movie exists, it's been tried and tested so many times. It's like a market research project, right? It's not going to be interesting. It's going to be that same formula, boring nonsense, bullshit, right? Instead of that, make small budget movies and see what happens. As Woody Allen sir said. So we've talked about this. I won't repeat it unless somebody wants that perspective fresh, a new viewer of Thinker's Frequency. But other than that, we are good to go. Moving on. Telcos are gonna make it expensive. The data is gonna, entry level plans are gonna go out. Well, this is expected. Analysts said the move will boost ARPU, average revenue per user, for the telco operators. Now, why do telcos need to raise their ARPU? Right? Because telcos are pretty, Indian data is like cheapest in the world, essentially. Israel, Italy, India, very cheap data. We are like 0.18 dollars, 18 cents, 10 cents maybe, 10 to 18 cents per GB, when Western world has like $2.5. So we are very cheap. But that shouldn't say anything because PPP wise, it makes sense. Also in per capita income, we are like at 120th number. But anyway, the telcos are gonna raise some prices. They're gonna get away with the entry level thing. This is good news for Airtel stock and Jio whenever it lists. Spirits rise as demand pours in again. Whiskey, premium, and all of these guys are seeing an offtake growth of 6%. So we've talked about this. Premiumization, overall volume growth. While overall volume is falling off the cliff for the Western world and also falling in India, sometimes the demand still sees some growth, and premium sector especially. Offtake grows 6% in volume terms compared with 1% a year earlier, shows data from excise department. Happy hours. Whiskey sales rose 7%, vodka 14%, gin 48% from a low base. So something good happening as far as this play is considered. 300 million people, India's drinking population, nearly half consume low cost or unbranded liquor. And that's why this turns out to be a good sell, right? The money is in premiumization. The money is taking over the fragmented, disorganized, unbranded market. And that's why these people are being able to grow. But the overall liquor market, in nutshell, is falling. Not many people know that. Moving on. We've already talked about DOT dials up heat on telemarketers. I've always talked about how over-regulated telemarketers are. Why it doesn't make sense, to essentially curb the spam so much. Is spam really that big of a problem? That you're over-regulating telcos, you're over-regulating telemarketers here. These guys, they don't even have any pull, right? They don't even have the money, right? The bulk SMS guys, these guys are poor anyway. Why would you like to tie them up so much, right? What is the big problem with, let's say, telecallers calling you, right? Is it that big of a problem? Like, I personally believe it's not that big of an issue, but I might be biased because we used to run a call center, but that's okay. Operators face a penalty of 141 crores. The real spam happens on OTT apps, which is WhatsApp and so on and so forth, but nobody talks about that. So, moving on. Capex push, we've already discussed. Parliamentary panel talking about export strategy. We know more about the export problems than the parliamentarians. I can be sure of that. Those people don't know shit. Anyway, private banks told to step up Jan Suraksha credit outreach play. Lenders also asked to play more active role in state level bankers committees. So people are talking about, the government has been really pushing the banking industry to actually take over in a lot of places where things have not been that great, like startup funding. So PSUs were advised to actually create startup funding mechanisms. Private banks are now told to accelerate the Jan Suraksha play. Jan Suraksha is, I guess, the insurance play. The government has directed private sector schemes such as Jan Suraksha and play a more active role in state level bankers for micro and small enterprises and other credit outreach play. What is Jan Suraksha leading to? I read about it, but I am missing. Jandhan Yojana is fair, okay. Claims under Jan Suraksha schemes and augmentation of banking in infrastructure in rural. No, it's not. It's not the insurance. That's Ayushman Yojana. I'm just trying to figure out where that's going on. Jandhan accounts are up, of course. 6 lakh Jandhan account open. Uh, 1 second. Jan Suraksha Yojana. I'm just mixing it up. Jan Suraksha Yojana scheme. Suraksha Yojana. 1 second. Bima Yojana. Yeah, it is. Jan Suraksha Yojana is insurance. So I was right. I'm sorry for the confusion. But it's always good to be thorough with facts instead of just moving on and covering it up. So that's why I try to check if I'm going wrong somewhere. Right? So private banks are asked to take it up, which is not surprising at all. Easing of IPO rules likely to help pave way for geo listing. We've talked about that a lot. We've talked about how the mega corporations having mega IPOs like 5 lakh crore valuation and stuff, they want some ease. We discussed that yesterday. So that's what's going to happen. For geo platforms, a lower threshold could have half the offering to around $3 billion. $3 billion. That's going to be the IPO size. Because that's what the Indian market can take. It cannot take a 6 billion or a 10 billion kind of an offer, right? It's going to be too huge. By the way, analysts have said sector-specific strategies outperform Nifty in 2025. Okay? Sector-specific strategies outperform Nifty in 2025. And they're looking at the market, 20-25% change, which sector do you think did the best? Which sector do you think did the best in 2025? Can you take a guess? Like Nifty rose up 5.6% in 2025, Sensex 4.5%. Nifty Auto 11%, Bank 9.8%. Which sector did the best? Defense, Mr. Tiwari, 19.1%. Defense, Aditi. Miss Aditi says, wild guess, defense. No, you're right. You're right. It's not as wild if you've been following Thinker's Frequency, even for a little while, right? So that's that. Moving on. Housing finance companies under lens over lending faults. So some lending faults happening as far as there's something called a loan to value ratio. That's capped at 75% for housing finance corporations as discussed. Now these people went ahead with like 90% of loan to value, which is a bit of a problem. Now these companies are especially facing some stress as far as margins is considered because PSBs, like the public sector banks, they have better prices for these loans. So they're fighting public sector banks at one end and the regulations at the other end, which they should be following anyway. But mortgage regulator flags cases where loans above 75 lakhs were sanctioned over 75% of LTV cap, asked to reclassify such advances as non-home loans. So that is what's going on with housing finance companies. We've discussed this in depth, how this newfound regulation also came and clarified a lot of things as far as housing finance is considered. Moving on. We've talked about Aurobindo. We've talked about India, China. We've talked about the US-India thing. The gaming authority. A national authority to regulate gaming. We've talked about. So now the government is saying, Ashwini Vaishnav sir is saying, guess how this must be sounding to the betting players. Okay, he says, do gaming. Gaming is animation. Gaming is video games. Gaming is a lot of learning. Gaming is a lot of jobs. Do gaming, but don't do betting. So just imagine if you're like Dream 11 or MPL or these Nazara kind of a player, and you go to him and say, sir, you should not regulate gaming like this. You should not kill gaming industry like this. And he says, go do gaming. Don't do betting. And when 90% of your revenues come from betting, how would you feel? But that's the tragic comedy that this play is on right now. And it's good actually, it's good. For both categories, it has encouraged the development of indigenous technologies, responsible game design, and use of emerging technologies such as AI, AR, VR. You know, the move will see India become a global hub in creative and cutting edge gaming. So just imagine how this must be sounding to the people who are actually in the business, right? This must be sounding like they must be infuriated with everything. But anyway, moving on. We've already talked about the exchequer laws that the whole thing is gonna be on. This is a very big news, like 5 full articles on this gaming play. But what can they claim, man? They're actually making people kill themselves, Uh, like what? They're not making any jobs. Like Probo and all of these people, they don't hire a lot of people. You don't need a lot of people to run a gaming enterprise. What good are you doing, right? It's a very big play. Like you don't create a lot of jobs. You're not doing anything. What are you doing essentially? By the way, Mudra Yojana, Mudra loans, the small loans given to very small businesses. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember, there in the market near to my place, there's Shambhu Bhaiya, and he's like a tycoon, right? He used to run a kabaddi store. He got a Mudra loan. So I talked to him and I said, what are you doing, bhaiya? आपने एक नई दुकान शुरू कर ली, and so on and so forth. So he said, I took a Mudra loan of how much? About some 16 lakhs. And I'm like, wow, that's happening. Mudra loan accounts have reached 53 crores, of which 36 crores are women accounts. So the Mudra loans is one of the best schemes that this government has begun. The small loans, interest-free collateral, not interest-free, collateral-free loans for very small businesses, poor businesses. They thought that Mudra loans are going to have a huge default rate, but they didn't have it. Mudra loans had a very, very good recovery. Only 2% of NPAs, which was above the industry standard. Great, great job. And imagine the opportunities that they must have created, right? Mudra loans, like 53 crore loan accounts. That's just extraordinary. Anyway, what's extraordinary is Xiaomi is to take on Tesla and BYD in Europe in EV foray in 2027. The phone company, it's actually become an EV company, and an EV company is they have huge presence. They got like almost as much as the entire how much India sells in like 2 months. They got in first day in pre-orders. So this was a news recently where they launched their flagship EV and they got like a million orders or like 4 lakh sales orders, something like that. It was just extraordinary. Yeah, 4 lakh. So what India sells in a month, they sold in like the first hour or something, at least the pre-orders. So they are going to be heavy. They're going to go to European market with their EVs. BYD is already kicking Tesla's ass, in Europe. It's going to be even tougher because Xiaomi is just as good as BYD, they're saying, right? The smartphone business down 2%, but the company quarter revenue up 31%. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of strength, and they're going to go very, very hard on whatever happens with the EV industry. Bad news for Tesla, but bad news for Tesla only in the EV space because Tesla is really going to be big as far as the humanoid play is considered, which are going to launch the next year. So humanoid robots and the self-driving cars, the robo-taxi, they are what Mr. Musk says are going to make Tesla a $20 trillion company. Do you believe him? Do you believe him when he says like Tesla could be a $20 trillion company? Well, I do. That's all. Amazon. Mr. Jindal asks, the betting industry can pay the penalty and still be present. No. It's become a punishable offense. It's not like that. Yeah, Peabody's deal, so on and so forth. Trump says, I think Putin is tired of the war but may not want to make a deal. I've set up the table for Zelensky and Putin, now it's up to them. Well, that was not what you were selling earlier. So that's all, ladies and gentlemen. We This brings us to the end of the 87th episode of Thinkers Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. I'll thank Mr. Jindal, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Patil, Mr. Tarun, Miss Aditi, Mr. Sahu for calling me fire on LinkedIn, and everybody else who joined. I have a beautiful day. See you tomorrow. Cheers. Tomorrow we'll be on time. So, tomorrow, my promise is that I'll be here at 8 a.m. sharp. No delays. Bye bye. Thank you, Miss Aditi.